Hi, I'm Commissioner Raquel Regalado. Thank you for joining us on your lunch break. Today, we're talking with one of our amazing community partners about the different programming and opportunities that we have and how we work with them and how we can work with you to do more and provide these services to all the residents of Miami-Dade County.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining us in this educational webinar. Today, we're going to talk about the new and improved adult programming in Miami-Dade for the Neurodivergent and Autism Acceptance Month that we are working here with the Commissioner, Raquel Regalado. Today, we have Easter Seals. We have Camila Rocha from Easter Seals. We have Kevin Grace from the Learning Experience, and of course, our very own Commissioner, Raquel Regalado. Awesome. Passing it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alejandro. And thank you for everyone that's joining us. And if you're watching this after the fact, welcome. As you know, we're celebrating autism acceptance. And we also do weekly webinars where we educate folks on all things Miami-Dade County. And Alejandro is at the head of that. He's just an amazing job. So if you don't subscribe to our emails, or have access to our webinars on YouTube, I suggest that you do that. You can learn so much about the work that we're doing here in Miami-Dade County and the resources that are available. But this is a very special webinar because I have so many people ask me about adult programming. And as many of you know, we spent a lot of bandwidth talking about the littles and therapy and everything that happens at the school district. But at 22, there is a cliff and there's no one to complain to. So for all the parents that, ask me about what to do with the littles, at least there's an infrastructure and there's something to attach yourself to as we look for better services. But after 22, it's just a void. And it's so important that we start not only creating more adult programs, but really highlighting the folks that are doing amazing work. There's a lot of programming, but today we're going to talk about where that programming is moving, because in the same way that there's been a shift in terms of therapies and practices, we're seeing the same thing in the adult programming space. And I want to highlight the folks that are doing that because it's not just about sending people somewhere to spend their time. It's really about moving them closer to independence and having those conversation about vocational training and adulthood. So I want to start with asking you, Camila, and then Kevin, to talk a little bit about your organizations, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the adult programming and how yours are different from other things in the market.
Sure. Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, Easter Seals provide services for individuals of varying exceptionalities throughout their lifespan. So we provide education, advocacy, supports, and direct programming to help these individuals at whatever stage in their life they are to become more independent and contributing members of the society. So to your point, Raquel, what one of our latest adventures has been to open a young adult day program for individuals with developmental disabilities, and the idea behind this is to continue providing some individualized supports and goal planning while also building pathways to employment, bringing community outings, and personalized advocacy and caregiving supports that are very critical at this age, while keeping an eye on wellness and life skills activities. So we'll get to talk a little bit more about that, but also for those of you that perhaps don't know a lot about Easter Seals, we are bringing this with some of our infusion in one of our highlight programs that it's our culinary arts high school program, which is um, well known in the community because we provide vocational education for individuals with varying exceptionalities on site with an independent living skills infusion. So we'll talk more about it.
Wonderful. And best in class, my daughter did graduate, full disclosure, from the Easter Seals culinary program. Isabella loves it, and she's in the adult program. Kevin, if you could tell us a little bit about the Miami Learning Experience. One of the things is similar to Easter Seals, you guys have been around for a long time, but you're also creating new programming for adults that's very different than what we had before in the market.
Correct. And, Miami Learning Experience started, we're now 49 years old. So next year we celebrate our 50th anniversary. And it's interesting that the founders wouldn't know what we looked like today because it's so different. It was started as a school for children with Down syndrome, and as times have changed, as the years have passed, uh, the Down syndrome population has decreased, and yet varying exceptionalities, including autism, have increased. So we've had to adjust. So we've not only adjusted with the composition of the individuals that we serve, but they also grew up. And to your point at the beginning, it's great. There is this wonderful infrastructure when they're little and even going through, the high school years. And, I'm fond of saying, and then what? And if I recognize that, not as the parent of a child with any exceptionalities, um, parents are certainly asking that same question. And we always have to evolve too. And I think that's the important thing because um, individuals are living longer. And just as we all have different expectations as our jobs change, as we take on different things in our lives, it should be no different for them. And, one size does not fit all. No child or no young adult is right for every program, just as every program isn't right for every young adult. There are programs out there that can meet the needs of many of the individuals that we have. And as we're in, this month of autism awareness, we also have to be aware that, the spectrum is a spectrum. And I hate to be cliche, but some of those sayings, you meet one individual with autism, you've met one individual with autism. It's the same for programs. And we should not expect that any one program is going to fit the needs of every individual that's out there with an exceptionality. It's not possible. And I think the sooner that organizations really have a full understanding of who they are, it makes life a lot easier. Because stay true to who you are, and you will be full, and you will serve the people that fit and are looking for the type of programming you have. And if you're not the place, they will find someplace else, and that's okay. We're not everything for everyone, and we have to stop trying to do that, and specialize and do a good job with what we have, and everyone will win as a result of it.
100%. I agree with you 100%. And I think it's interesting because we have that mindset when we talk about the littles, right? So when you're trying to place a 6-year-old, everybody understands that you got to shop around. But when you get to adulthood, there's this, well, what do I do with them now? Just take them and figure it out. The same the same skill set, right? That you had when you were looking at 6 and at 10 and at 14 is the same skill set and the same patience that you have to bring to finding an adult program because there is no one size, fits all. I think the other part that's interesting about the adult programming is where does the adult feel comfortable? Right? Because the other issue is when they're 6, when they're 10, when they're 12, as a parent, you have a lot more input. As adults, they need to feel comfortable in that environment. They have to want to go. They have to feel fulfilled, right? And feel like adults and not forever babies in that program in order for it to work because they're no longer little. You can't just, put them in the car and drop them off, right? There's a series of other things, and they have to feel like they have community there. And that is a very curated thing. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, Kevin, you mentioned that there is an evolution and that they live longer. They also have a lot of different needs. Some people
Right.
need more supervision. Some people are more independent. Some people thrive in a more academic setting. Some people thrive in a more hands-on setting. And those are all different things that need to be made available for adults. So I'm going to start talking to both of you about the transition period because One of the things that happens to me when I start talking about adult programming to parents of younger children is they get a little overwhelmed and they're like, I'm not there yet. And I try to explain to them that you have to start considering transition at between 10 and 13. That's when you really need to start figuring out what will adulthood look like for this child, and how can we give them the skills that they need and figure out what they enjoy, right? So that they can move into that space. Both the Miami Learning Experience and Easter Seals, you both have littles and you have primary and high school, right? So a lot of the issues that you both had was where are these adults going, right? And what are they doing? And I think that's one of the reasons why your programs are so different from other programs, right? Because you had to create something, for that existing group, to your point, Kevin, that was growing up. Where are they going? So, Camila, the culinary program is so successful. You have a waiting list. Everybody knows it's best in class when it comes to this kind of education. But then you were sending those kids home. What was happening to those graduates after they finished at the culinary program?
Thank you, Raquel, for bringing that up, and thank you for all the praises to the program. And it's interesting how it took a long time for us and maybe for the community at large to really pay attention at this population that was graduating to the couch. And we all talk about it like, oh, they graduate to the couch. So what we were seeing is that these young adults were coming back to us to visit, right? And we could very visibly see a decline in very um just basic skills, right? Their speech was not the same. Their social skills were not the same as when they had graduated. So we could only wonder, how about all the other skills that we taught, everything in the kitchen that they learned, all their peers and the connections they had are no longer there. So we started meeting with these families, and they were very fearful for exploring even other opportunities. Maybe funding wasn't there. Maybe they did not do the homework timely for their transition and to plan what was going to happen to this young adult. And there were not many options back then. Little by little, we started seeing more options opening up in the community, a lot to do with Medicaid waiver and the never ending waiting list, and then maybe not having the opportunity to access that specific programming. And maybe sometimes the programming was not what the family was looking for or what the young adult needed. And you mentioned this, not every program is it's a good fit for every young adult. But what we started doing was started talking about transition very early on. So when the little ones come in, we start talking about transition to kindergarten, and very shortly after we start talking about transition to middle school, so that these families are used to be thinking on what's coming, what's the next stage, what is it, what is it that I can be expecting and what I need to be doing so that I'm well prepared. And even then, when the opportunity presents and the moment gets here, you have to start dealing with the no, what if they don't like it? What if what I
Right.
thought was perfect is not going to be what my young adult is going to prefer? So we need to be flexible. And I think that to your point, more and more providers like the learning experience, like Easter Seals, we're getting to work more collaborative instead of competitive. So we refer out when we understand that we're not the best provider for a particular kind. We call one of our friends and we make a referral where we believe that this young adult is going to be successful.
Right. Kevin, and I know that you guys do that too. And you also provide a lot of supports for parents to deal with like the financing piece and to navigate all of that, because that's also a big part of it, right?
It's a huge part of it, and, when I talk to families about that topic, it's so interesting, and I've had many a family, break down in front of me because as parents of of young adults with varying exceptionalities, they tend to take on the world. And when a crisis comes, you just deal with it. And you don't have to just deal with it. You can be planned and let other people help you. The getting off the wait list and turning to crisis when your young adult is turning 22, and people don't talk about that. And so I find so many families are in the dark about that transition, and it's a real option for people, and it's is there time? Is there homework? As Camila said, yes, of course there is, but it doesn't have to be scary, and you don't have to go through it alone, and there are resources out there to help parents do that. This is one fight you don't have to do by yourself. There are a lot of people, a lot of programs out there who are willing to work with you through that process. And there are variables too. You've got Med Waiver, you've got CDC Plus, and just as no program is, no two programs are the same and no two programs are right for every child. It's the same with funding. For some people, CDC Plus is the way to go, and for other people, just going straight Med Waiver is the way to go. You need to just be educated, and there are people out there to help with that.
Kevin, Camila was talking about graduating to the couch, and I know that you've seen this too. And a lot of parents believe that that's it. The world ends after 22 and they just go home, and I have fought on the policy side in Tallahassee with a lot of folks who believe that all you can do is get someone to help you at home. And I talk about the importance of um, giving them programming that moves them towards adulthood and towards independence, and the negative aspect of keeping them at home with a caregiver. It is my opinion that that system is really created for elderly people who are in developmental decline, not for our children who have a developmental delay. They're not getting worse. They're supposed to be getting better, but they get better with the interaction, with the structure, with the routine. And when you just send them home with someone and they watch YouTube, I have found that in year 2 or 3, they don't want to get out of the house. They're suffering from mental health issues. They start having issues with schizophrenia. There's so many things. And to what Camila mentioned, that you see a direct decline in the skills that they had when they were having day-to-day interactions. Um, what do you tell parents about that shift? Because right now we have a lot of parents who took them home and they graduated to the couch, and they'll tell me this individual does not want to go back to a school. They just want to stay home and I don't want to fight with them. What do you tell parents who are in crisis and they don't even know that they're in crisis?
Right. And that's the biggest thing. And they don't know that they are in crisis. So what we do is we tackle that by providing choice. And I think, so often the population that we serve is denied choices. And I think that's one of the reasons. If your choice is YouTube or NBC, CBS, or Netflix, that's your choice. Those are your choices. So we try to provide choices at an adult level so that it's not school. Even if you're taking a reading class, you know, change it. We talk about current events. And how do you learn about current events? You read about current events. And how do you learn about Miami and different locations in Miami? It's still all geography. So there are different ways of approaching that. And we want the family to make those choices. You pick which classes you want to take. Pick which work opportunities. And that's what we call it. We call it volunteer work opportunities, so that we're providing those soft skills that can be transferred if you choose and are able to find a job. Sometimes the places where we go will offer one of our individuals a paid position. And it's also not all or nothing. We allow part-time enrollment so that those individuals who are working in the community can find the social connection by coming part-time here. So I think again, it's so easy to say we're 5 days a week because you need 5 days worth of care. It's so easy to fall into that trap, and you can make it work. You can provide that variety, and actually, I think that, Camila mentioned it. It's not what I think you want. It's what you want. And we obviously we can't do it all, but we change it, and we change it every semester so that if you make a choice and you don't like the choice, you're not stuck with it forever. But we're also teaching those soft lessons too, right? That we, as adults, we make decisions, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not so good. And sometimes you have to work through it, but it's not forever. I think taking that approach of choice for individuals is extremely important, and changing things continuously. Uh, you know, Going out in the community is another thing, and I think that's, when we graduate to the couch, we're not just doing a disservice to the individual, we're doing a disservice to the community, because there's no greater way of inhibiting learning, understanding, and empathy than hiding behind a door. We have a philosophy here. We want our kids to see the world, and we want the world to see our kids. And that is the greatest way of breaking down barriers. You're right. We need legislation, we need policy, but getting to know people, seeing them in the community is the greatest way of opening up doors and breaking down barriers. And I think there's no greater value than that. And that's what we owe ourselves. When I talk to groups all the time, I say, I have the best job in the world because I get to spend my day with these individuals. You should spend an hour with them or two, and
Agree.
your life will be changed forever.
Agree. And I think it's important, I mean, I want to ask you about that in terms of the choice, the job training, the going out in the community. These are all markers of adulthood. A lot of these individuals have siblings, have cousins. They're watching other people become adults. In the case of my daughter, she says that the Easter Seals program is her college because she has a sibling who is going to college. So for her, the fact that her little big brother, because he's tall, so she calls him that, goes to college, she wanted to go to college too. So Camila, in your program, how is the adult program different from what you do in the high school? And you all have really focused also on health and nutrition because a lot of the issues that we have with the adults are associated with weight, and issues associated with their health, and you guys are tackling that by getting them moving, and it's kind of a different approach to the college-ish approach that the Miami Learning Experience has.
Yes, and to that point, Raquel, it's incredible how we can um, all do a little bit of the same in that area. And Kevin mentioned about the flexibility, right? We allowed our program is a little different because we allow the flexibility within a structure schedule. So if we have maybe a small group, what we're talking about is okay, we are the ones that provide the options. They get to choose, but we are the ones that design the options. Pretty much when you go to a parenting class, the first thing they teach you is like parents provide the choices, not five, not 10. You provide two choices. And if they want to pick the third choice, no, you go back to the same two that you offer. So what we do in the program is that we create these options based on what they like, their preferences, but we are controlling the environment. We are controlling that perhaps the activities that we offer are have a wellness component. We have a gym on site, so they have the opportunity to do maybe active exercise, maybe something a little bit more passive if they want to do yoga instead of
I was about to say, you got my daughter to do yoga. I'm forever impressed. I could
by
not do
choice.
that. Yes, by
By
choice.
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 is I think that she prefers something passive rather than being on the treadmill and running. So again, she has the choice, right? Same thing for wellness when we're talking about snacks. Okay, let's think about what snack options we're offering, and if they contribute to building and making these snacks with the culinary skill set that they have brought to the program, then they will likely be choosing something a little bit more healthy than not. um, if they are going to be looking at community outings, we want to make sure that these community outings are, to Kevin's point, valuable for them and also for the community. I think that we are way past the autism awareness era. We need to truly embrace the acceptance, and by acceptance, understanding that this generation is growing, that they will be part of the workforce if they are not already part of the workforce, and what are we going to do as a community to make sure that they are embraced, trained, and ready to thrive.
Yeah. Camila, in terms of what you're offering that's different than the culinary, can you tell us a little bit about the gardening, the different things that you guys have added to this program that I think are great? Because to Kevin's point about choices, look, this is all a pathway towards independence. And you get to independence one choice at a time. And you learn to make choices and to learn the consequences of your choices and to feel valuable, and to feel like you contribute. Those are all the things that are happening in these adult programs that are a little different than just entertaining them, which is why I want to highlight them. Because parents usually tell me, well, but the reason they have to go to an adult program is because they can't be independent. And I'm like, but this is a march towards independence, right? You're teaching them the skills that make them independent every day. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've added to this program that's different from just the culinary? Because you even have like a little diner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have incorporated some of the gardening, as you mentioned. We are growing microgreens. And ideally, this is going to go into a new venture where the participants can be selling their microgreens, cooking with the microgreens, making some very creative adventures with them, which you'll hear more about it. It's in beginning stages. But we also have a diner. If you walk into the place, you will feel like in a diner from the 70s or 80s. And the idea is that our participants have the opportunity to work the diner in all aspects, right? Cleaning up, setting up, serving customers, preparing meals for themselves. It's not just a pretend play environment. We create real life environments so that the participation is meaningful and it contributes to them feeling fulfilled and also having the opportunity to practice skills that are going to be used in the workforce at some point. It gives us an opportunity also to invite community members or maybe employer and partners to see them in action. And once you see that, oh, really, this person can really be a waiter, or maybe this person can truly be a host at my restaurant, then it opens up opportunity for meaningful employment. You're going to see a piece that we're going to put out today, actually later on, of a successful story of one of our culinary arts graduate that has been working at Easter Seals for 10 years in the as a food service worker. And it's incredible to see how fulfilled he feels. He's independent. He lives with his parents, but he contributes. He earns a good competitive salary, and he's doing what he loves doing, what he learned and became passionate about it here at Easter Seals.
Kevin, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the work and how you've structured the work, because I think one of the things that we're seeing as we talk more about employment is that these individuals miss community and they miss being with each other. So when they start working, sometimes it doesn't work out because they feel isolated and it's too overwhelming, it's too many hours and they go back to the couch. What do you tell parents in terms of the combination between the adult day services and the work and how that helps them kind of bridge that gap of loneliness, and getting to celebrate and participate, right? Not just all work.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Sometimes I say, think of the world you would like to live in. For me, it's all work. Yes, I get some enjoyment out of it, a lot of enjoyment out of it actually. But for them, let them have balance in their life, and uh, that's what we all strive for, right? Work life balance, and for them it's more the life work balance. Whether they're all we at the end of the day, we want to know that we're being productive. Right? A human being's a basic need is to feel like you're being productive in the world. So if it is a job that you're going to go to for 3 hours, 2 days a week, 4 hours, 2 days a week, or 8 hours, 2 or 3 or 4 days a week, that's okay. It doesn't have to be all about the work side of it. And let's look at what makes them happy. And you're right, Commissioner, it's their friends. It's that sense of community. That's where they find real happiness. So don't feel as though you have to give it up when you're finding a job. Um, but at the same token, there are rules to jobs.
Right.
Right? We have to show up when we're scheduled to work. So it's creating that balance and getting to the point where they can do that. And for all of us, there's a new element that has been introduced, and that is independent living for many of them through the opening of Casa Familia, and so that's another dimension that parents need to talk to their young adults about, and creating those boundaries, creating that balance, because you're right, they spiral when it's too much of one and not enough of the other, because
and it's and
they're
it's and
hurtful.
it right, and it's also a very dramatic change. So here we go from an individual that for almost 20 years was in a room with peers, right? Under a structured environment that was predictable and had routine. And all of a sudden they graduate to the couch. They have nothing, right? It's just YouTube, YouTube and whatever they want to do, to your to your point earlier about the lack of choices. And then you want to, or you push them into a work environment where they're surrounded by neurotypical people. They're not with their tribe. They feel isolated. They're masking. They're exhausted. They don't feel that they can stim, or they can be themselves, right? And then they go home where, unfortunately, like I tell people, I see it because I have two of them, right? I'm the freak, right? Like they're tired of my neurotypicalness. So they just go home to more neurotypical people, right? When they have so much joy when they are with each other and they feel understood, and they could do whatever they need to do to self-regulate, and it's okay because somebody is doing it right next door to so there is something to be said about the connection that they have with each other and the mental health benefit of that, and how they all feel like they're adulting together as opposed to trying to adult in isolation. And it provides them with routine and structure. And in the case of Isabella, positive reinforcement is so important. And knowing kind of what happens on Thursday and what happens on Friday, and what happens on Monday. And for her, that really does change the whole dynamic of what she does. And without that, she gets lost, and there's no finding her, without that structure. So for parents, and Camila, if you can answer this one, for parents that are now either looking at transitioning from a program to an adult program, or from the couch to an adult program, how are you recommending that they navigate the transition?
Oof, this is incredibly powerful, Raquel. We see it every day. We hear their stories. Sometimes they're horror stories, as I tell them, and I think it's important to visit many. Right? Don't just marry to the first one you see. It's important that you do your homework in regards to what they qualify for. If it's long-term care, if they have a long-term care health plan, or if they're going to be paying privately, or if it's through Med Waiver or the CDC Plus or the ICMC, whatever it's available for them, what is the best approach for their particular needs. And one thing that I will always say, remember that when you hesitate, when you wait to take this leap of faith, to call it that way, to actually go and enroll in a young adult day program, you're risking yourself and them. You can have caregiver burnout. You
Yes.
don't have to. There's no reason why a parent should be doing this alone when there's a lot of providers like the Learning Experience, like us, like the Wow Center, like many others that are here willing to provide the support that you need so that they continue to be social creatures. We are all social creatures. We need each other to thrive. And there's no reason for them to stay home and be unproductive when they can truly contribute to our community. So just do your homework. Call any place and every place that you think will be a good fit, and maybe draw down some of the critical questions that you need before you go, like what's the routine like, what's the schedule, what happens in the case of a crisis, are they going to call the police, or are they going to call you, are they going to call 911? All these things that you fear as a parent, it's very important that you ask, and that you make sure that, of course, it's a place that is reputable, licensed, and insured.
Agree. Kevin?
And I think every day you stay on the couch is going to take 2 days to transition
Agree.
back to something. It seems like it's not a big deal, but I know myself. If I stay home for a staycation and I don't have a lot of plans, it's really hard to get back after that, and get back into my routine of work. Whereas if I just continue doing things on a daily basis, even if they're small things, it makes it a lot easier to come back to work after a week off or something like that. So please, please keep them active, and it will help the transition a lot. And you're right. Just to mirror what Camila said, call people, visit them. Uh, and see if if your son or daughter can visit,
Right.
bring them along. Nobody wants to hide anything from anyone. And I guess, and it's also looking to look for things. If you see a lot of coloring books, run.
Yes.
We don't want that.
Agree, 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 agree.
Worksheets.
Worksheets,
Worksheets
run.
and coloring books. Agree, 100%. That's the old way, right? Like
Yes.
that's the old way. That's what we used to do,
Right.
And listen, if they want to do that at home, that's fine,
Absolutely.
but that's not what they're supposed to be doing in a program,
Yes.
I mean, so and I think the other thing that I tell parents is this is a long period, 22. I mean, and I think what happens is, they're used to having this structure, and then 22, they don't have structure and they send them home. And then I ask the question, okay, so you graduated them to the couch. What's your plan for the next 45 years? And they look at me like I'm a little crazy. And I'm like, yeah, what's the plan? You got 45, 50, maybe 60 years. What's your plan? And they don't have a plan because they're just still taking it like day by day. But that is really the time period that we're talking about, right? And if you burn out, to Camila's point, if you decide to take this on, and you're going to do this. Like, you're committing to do this for 30, 40, 50 years. The staying at home, that is a long time to stay at home. I mean, for those of us that remember the pandemic, I mean, 100 days and we were crawling up the walls, right? So can you imagine that your plan is now to keep someone on the couch for 40, 50 years? That is unsustainable. That is unsustainable, right? So
And the same with our programs, and the same with our programs. Just because you come to me today does not mean that you have to stay with me for 45 years either.
exactly. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
to that point, also, let's think about it, is how long this caregiver is going to be around for.
Yes.
Healthy, being able to truly provide care and unconditional care, right? We also see cases, and we have one right now that's coming back after 30 years of not having a structure. It's like, okay, what's out there? What can you guys do? And it's very hard to go back after such a large gap.
Well, and what I've seen also is that some parents are hesitant, and the caregiver takes it on. But the minute the caregiver gets sick and someone else steps in, right? So now you've created a world centered around this caregiver, right? And look, I lost my mother at 33. It's always devastating to lose your parent. But when your parent is also your caregiver and the center of your universe and you do not know anything else, the any issue that your parent suffers now rocks the very foundation of your life, because now it's a free for all, and then they get pushed into whatever because they just need to put them somewhere. They didn't have a choice. It wasn't well vetted. They don't have a routine. Now they've been separated from their caregivers having issues, and it's like the worst possible situation because now you're doing it from a crisis point, where you're just going to do whatever to solve your problem. So, and I think you guys brought up something that's so important, that this doesn't have to be forever. We can move in between these programs because their skills change, their interests change, their ability to work change, their community changes, and that's perfectly fine. That is actually very normal and expected.
Right. We do that with our careers, right?
Yes.
So
It,
why should we have a different expectation of them?
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, we're running out of time, so if you guys can provide some information on your how to contact you, and if you're having any events, so that the parents that are watching, whether they have littles or they graduated to the couch, they can come and visit both of you and see kind of how adult daycare, and I wish we had like a different name for it, is getting more dynamic, and really providing amazing opportunities for adults with disabilities.
Yeah, so if I'm gonna try to share my screen just because it's happening tomorrow, I would like to bring attention to we're hosting an open house from 6 to 8 p.m. tomorrow at our Kendall location. This is where we are hosting our IDD Adult Day program. Happy to provide more information directly. Our website, it's at the bottom of the flyer. You can call us directly. Our number here is 305 325 0470. And anything that we can be of help to any parent or anyone watching, just feel free to reach out to us.
Fantastic. Kevin?
And Miami Learning Experience, it's real easy. Our website is mleschool.org, and our number is 305-275-5900. Or as I often say, if you're at any type of function that has individuals with any type of an exceptionality, you'll probably find me there or manning a table somewhere in that vicinity.
That
It's
is
an
Yeah. That's a perfect segue, because both of your organizations are going to be at our April 25th event. So we're having a big resource fair Autism Speaks is doing their summit next door, where they're going to be talking about adult services also. And you'll have resource tables there. So if you want to learn more about adult programming, we have a lot of adult programming that's going to be represented at our April 25th event, so that parents, you can come with your adults and talk to everyone one-on-one. Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Thank you both. You're doing wonderful, wonderful work.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
us.
so much for always advocating and being a great supporter.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Remember, you should start thinking about adult programming as soon as possible. It's changing. There's lots of different options. And if you follow us, we'll give you more information on those options. And like I said, we're having our resource fair on the 25th and our Family Inclusion Day. So you can join us and talk to them one-on-one there. We're putting everything that you need in one location. Have a great day.